Okay, the structure of the focus group. Now there will be a 5 minutes introduction by the facilitator. I will do it for all the groups. I'm Irene Bianchi and I will be facilitator of the focus group on urban and territorial renovation. Anna Moro with Grazia Concilio will be also facilitator for the group on citizen engagement and participation, while Ilaria Tosoni, always from DASTU, will be facilitator for the third group, health and well-being. After this short introduction that is only aimed at giving the rules of the game somehow, we will have two sessions. One, it will be a discussion on social impact assessment. We will ask cities that are here with us today to think about one successful policies they have in mind, and so a policies that succeeded in producing some really relevant societal effects in the impact domain. So in one of the social impact we are considering, and we'll ask them whether they carried out any assessment, any evaluation about these impacts. The second round of discussion will be on the factors affecting social impact generation and routing. In line with what Grazia presented this morning, we would like to understand always for the same policy, basically, which factors contributed to the success of these policies. So allow for the impact to be generated, but also for the effects of this cultural initiative or policy to be rooted and absorbed in their context. This second round will last 25 minutes, and then we will have a moment for an expert of the domain to summarize with us the take-home messages and to clarify something if needed. This will be Louis Bonnet for the focus group on participation and well-being, Professor Davide Bronzini for the focus group on urban and territorial renovation, and Rarita Zbrenka from the Cluj Cultural Center for the group on health and well-being. So the questions we already anticipated to you, to the cities that are here with us today. We asked you to select one cultural policies that proved somehow to be able to activate a transformative process in your cities, and particular in one of the three impact domain we are addressing. So. We will ask in the first round to identify the expected impact, in this case in health and well-being or in one of the other teams, and to tell us whether you carried out any assessment procedure. While in the second round, we'll ask you to identify those factors that enabled or reinforced cultural-led transformative process in your context and in your impact domain. For simplicity, we have found, let's say, some of the thematic cluster presented before. For each, we assigned some cluster to each topic, but we would like the discussion really to be free. So just having in mind the policy you are presenting, just help us to identify those factors, and then we'll see to which cluster they refer to. Just some basic rules for interactions. We are using Miro, so it is an interactive platform for shared visualization. The rapporteur of each group will share the screen and take notes directly on this platform. Unfortunately, this morning the server of Miro was not working because things never goes as expected, but now it seems to work. So we will try to use this platform. In case of emergency, if there are problems, we have a not so fancy PowerPoint presentation we can use anyways to run our workshop. Due to time constraint, we will give priorities to cities and to participants that are not parts of the MESOC consortium. This is not, of course, because those are less important. We are really, really happy to have them on board with us today, but just because we'd like to interact with the cities we don't know, and also with representatives of the initiatives that are analyzed. So due to time constraint, we will give priority to them. Another important things we want to share with you is that the work does not end today. This focus group, this hour, let's say, is an exercise, but we will like we will go on with these activities, and you can contribute to the discussion also writing in the chat. We will collect all the inputs. We will try to use some of them for the final remarks, for the discussion, but also we will consider all your comments in the elaboration of the materials that will then be shared on the MESOP website as soon as possible. So this is an invitation to cities that will not interact directly with us, also, for example, for some of our partners, but also to all the experts that are joined us also today. If you have any comments or insight for the discussion, please feel free to use the chat and to help us collecting relevant reflections. The last thing, the final discussion that will be moderated by Professor Fedeli at the end of this morning will also be an important opportunity to share your experience and reflections with all the participants. So as already said this morning, please if you can, try to be with us until the end.
Okay, so we had a very interesting conversation with different cities, and it's quite hard to sum up because there were very different outputs and ideas that came from the conversation, but we can say that first, during the conversation, it emerged that there is a connection between the different social impacts. That's something that we have repeated also before, but it's important to stress out that policies and initiatives generally produce impacts in different social domains, and also in the in two or more of the social domains that we are studying. So this is a first reflection that we want to make. Then it was very interesting because there were different policies aimed, for example, in Milan at urban transformation, so a transformation of space, of public space, that was seen as a way to enhance social impact of a policy. But in this sense, regeneration is not seen uniquely as an area of impact, but also as a means, as an umbrella term, so a way that cities use to reactivate the space, the public space, and this sense of citizen ownership. Then another interesting reflection that emerged, especially in the case of Rijeka, that they perceived that there were many grassroots proposals that emerged after, for example, the European Capital of Culture, and these grassroots proposals were like really community bottom-up reaction. And it's interesting to see how these independent grassroots cultural initiatives may activate some kind of reflection for the public institution, and so the opportunity to start a transformative dialogue between this proposal and the public administration. Then there was, in terms of the relationship between cultural policies and impacts, there was this interesting view of cities that may find themselves in a position of recognizing new professions and functions. And this was, for example, a case for the new role of artists. Artists may be used to have to do more with the audiences or traditional cultural venues and environments. And in this new view, we see artists collaborating with communities, and so also starting to understand and to experiment a new way to see their professionality. Then, of course, it emerged again this idea that art is a good way to give voice to the excluded. So there were several initiatives dedicated to this. And if we can say a negative point that we noticed was some sort of lack of habit to evaluate projects and policies through the collection and measurement of data. So even if it's true that usually there is an observation, so there is a kind of follow-up of this initiative, it's important to start to create this habit of scientific collection and measurement of data in order to really know if the impact or the outcome, expected outcome, has been achieved. And also we have a general difficulty for cities to negotiate with different stakeholders because, of course, there are many ways in which the cities articulate their action in the territory. And so they have different networks and different relationships with different actors. And this sometimes is quite a delicate point that is important to note. I don't know if Grazia wants to add something.
It is perfect. It's okay. I don't need to add anything. Thank you, Giada.
Okay, I stop sharing.
Thank you, Giada. Now we leave the floor to Elisabetta Airaghi from KIA for the resume of the second focus group.
Yes. Let's see if you, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So in our focus group, we focus on three main initiatives proposed by Stile Moulineaux, Athens, and Rijeka. Milan and Cluj were also present, but we focused, as we said at the beginning, to the other cities participating in the focus group. So the first is Metamorphose, linking citizen with architecture in Stile Moulineaux. A pedestrian walk in Athens to create new pathways for citizens and tourists to appreciate the cultural heritage of the city. And then benching complex in Rijeka, also a renovation initiative, part of the European Capital of Culture strategy, but also like funded by other European projects. So in round one, in terms of impacts and evaluations, we have some key takeaways that we summarized here. So in terms of evaluation, we saw that all the initiative had interest in and planned to evaluate the impacts of the project, but since many of them are still ongoing, there are no already done results for the evaluation, but it's it's something that has been planned. And then in terms of expected impacts, these are kind of cross-cutting to all the examples that we discussed. And then we can see impacts in terms of built environment, so renovation of industrial buildings, but also reuse of abandoned spaces to like them at the service of the community, so not only for tourists then, but also really for territorial and city renovation. And so through the renovation of built environment, there is a neighborhood activation in terms of generating new employment opportunities and to the cultural activities offset by these buildings, like support for local citizens, citizen engagement, accessibility of spaces. And also what emerges like a strong involvement of the younger generations, like children, also the youth, to also raise awareness about the importance of continuing these activities for the citizens of tomorrow. And then in relation to the second round, so what are the enabling factors to support this project? Again, we identified some key elements that are common to all the examples. and also to the 5 clusters that has been identified by the project. So the first element is the context. So the project's organizers are really aware of the cultural resources of the territory in terms of cultural heritage site, for instance, but also artistic expressions, theater, and others to as a starting point for the project and the valorization of the territory. Then a vision, because these projects were really included in a larger perspective for how to the city or the territory can be like regenerated through culture. So the link with the national or local development strategies is really important. And then the last point is the strong citizen and political consensus. That was clear, for instance, in Rijeka, with the long-term commitment to bidding for the European Capital of Culture. And the fact that political consensus allowed to have also financial support, but also other support in terms of facilitation of regulation, and also the commitment of the citizen is important to leverage on other type of resources that are fundamental to have a successful output. And then in terms of questions, since we underlined how the vision and the citizen political consensus is important, how to identify a good momentum, and also to generate like interest for this kind of activities for social innovation and regeneration of society. Then deeper reflection on what are the key enabling factors, because here we just highlighted 3, but evidently there are more. And another interesting point is whether negative impacts have been foreseen in the early stage of the project development, because in the focus group we focus on positive impact, but of course it's important also to consider possible negative impact, like gentrification of other effects. So this
Thank
is. You want to add something, or?
No, I think this reflects the point of the discussion. Then I invite the cities who participated eventually in the final discussion to add something if we were missing some major point. And the last report is from Sandy Girardi for the group Health and Well-being. And then we can proceed for the with the final discussion. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay, can you see my screen? Sorry. Okay.
Yes, we see the whole presentation.
No.
Yes.
I need just a slide that Okay, so in the health and well-being focus group, we had different cities. The city in our consortium, like Valencia and Cluj, but also Bruxelles and Budapest. So we discussed together the initiatives that they are carrying on in their cities, and the key factors that we want to underline that came up from the focus group in terms of networks and resources. All the cities agree on the need of a quality partnership, both in terms of different disciplines and different area, but also in different type of city actor in the city. So this kind of partnership can help to develop the impacts of the initiative and the policies, and these lead to a committed human resource that interact in the project. And this was a very important point that came up from our discussion. Also, there was a lack, they identify a lack of profiles that can manage this kind of initiatives. For example, in the case of the art therapy project, the art therapy profession is not totally recognized, so this underlined a need to build a different kind of profession to carry out this kind of initiatives and this kind of policy. And in terms of norm and regulation, all the cities agree in the need to promote a long-term initiatives that can be transformed in norm regulation, like art prescription project. And also we see the importance and to create a new protocol for improve the cultural participation. That was a kind of norm and that came up from some project. And finally, the permission for researchers to run experiments in cultural spaces, to give to the university and the researcher the possibility to evaluate the impact in the cultural spaces, and also in this case in health and well-being spaces. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sandy.
If Ilaria or Rarita want to add something.